What's up? Skyters here. So, ever since I made my first ever video of what if Victoria went Victor and Emily to Lana dead, I thought, what if there could be 4 more what ifs of Corpse Bride, or should I say events? 3 will be shorter, the 4th one will be longer-ish. Before we get into the video, I'm not really that smart and I don't know much about the Victorian era, so I'm gonna do the best I can. So, let's get into these 4 short what ifs of Corpse Bride. So, the first what if is, what if Victor marry Emily? And that answer's pretty easy. Emily does not change her mind. She lets Victor drink the poison. He dies, and they're both married. They turn to butterflies, and they live happily ever after. Right? Wrong. Okay, why am I saying that's wrong? Because Victoria will be stuck with Lord Barkis after learning that her parents had no money. So, it's a happy ending for Victor and Emily, sad ending for Victoria. The second what if is, what if Victor wasn't terrified of marriage? So for this story, Victor is not the shy guy who meets Victoria. Instead, he's just a normal guy who doesn't stutter at all. In the vow scene, he practices vows very well with no mistakes. And the next day, Victor and Victoria get married and they live happy lives together, right? Wrong. Okay, why am I saying that's wrong again? Because Emily will be stuck in her grave for another few years. Now, is this a sad ending? No, it won't be, and here's why. Victor and Victoria are happily married, and they have a son named Victor Jr., which I'm going to name him for this video. Victor Jr. will be in his early 20s, and he'll be engaged to be married to a woman. And this will follow as the original film goes. Victor Jr. awakens Emily, he gets taken to Lana dead, and everything all goes the same. And by the end, Emily gets the ring back to Victor Jr. so that he can marry the love of his life, or maybe Victor Jr. can marry Emily. So you sort of got your Victor marry Emily kind of thing. The third what if is, what if Victor didn't go to Lana dead? So here's how this story starts. After Victor messes up his vows, he goes to the woods, he says his vows perfectly well in the woods, and he wakens Emily. Emily rises from her grave, and she lifts her veil. But instead of saying, I do to Victor, she says, thank you to Victor. Victor is confused. Emily helps up Victor. She tells him something. Emily explains that she was killed by a man named Lord Barkis. Victor will recognize that name Lord Barkis because he was at that room when he was trying to practice his vows. Emily explains that she made a vow to herself if anyone who ever finds her, she'll be free out of her grave. And she thanks Victor for freeing her. After Victor hears this and understanding this, and knowing that he freed a corpse bride out of her grave, he'll say, you're welcome. Emily gives the ring back to Victor, and she tells him to tell everyone about Lord Barkis being a murderer, and she thanks him one last time. She turns into butterflies, Victor runs back to the town, he tells everyone about Lord Barkis, and the next day, Victor and Victoria get married, and Lord Barkis is taken to jail. So, it's a much more happy ending. The final what if there was a corpse groom? Before we get into the corpse groom's origin, if you guys have watched my first video, I mentioned that Lord Barkis killed multiple women, but when I was thinking back on it, I didn't know if he killed multiple women or if he just killed Emily and that was it. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this, but please leave your comments down below if I'm right or wrong about Lord Barkis, if he killed multiple women or if he just killed Emily and that was it. So, back to the story. The corpse groom's origin. Who is he? Well, his name is Edward Vincent. When his parents died, he took their place and became a rich man. He's not a spoiled rich man, he's a good man with a good heart, a kind man. He uses his money to help out the villagers, and they all appreciate Edward for it. Edward will also meet a few people in the past that met him. He'll meet Pastor Godsworth, Helder God, Mayhew, the town's crier, and he'll also meet a few corpses that met Edward. He'll meet Alfred and the corpse that can split himself in half when he used to be alive. Edward Vincent will also meet Lord Barkis, and I will have Lord Barkis knowing about Edward Vincent's family and meeting them too. Edward Vincent and Lord Barkis will be like best pals and best friends, sort of like Hector and Ineso from Coco. But their friendship will end because Lord Barkis will say something to Edward, he can use his money for something else, or he can give his money to him. But Edward denies it and tells Lord Barkis to get out and to never come back here again. Lord Barkis foreshadows Edward's death, saying, if you fall off a cliff, you break your bones and your neck. And Edward foreshadows Lord Barkis' death, saying, if you drink poison down your throat, you wouldn't even notice. That'll be the last thing they say to each other. Edward Vincent will meet his first ever girlfriend, and that is Emily, when she used to be alive. Edward and Emily will get along very well as a happy, loving couple. But their relationship will end because they can't work out their differences and they'll eventually break up. Edward hasn't heard from Emily for a while because Emily was already killed by Lord Barkis. After 1 year has passed, Edward Vincent will be 25 and he'll be engaged to be married to a different woman. One catch, he needs to practice his vows. Edward Vincent locks every door in his house and he goes to the woods all alone. He'll go deeper and deeper and he'll go by a cliff. And he will start to say his vows perfectly well. When he's done saying his vows, a thunder strikes down, causing Edward to stumble and fall. He breaks his bones and his neck. Edward Vincent dies. And when it starts to rain, the mud buries his entire body, leaving only his left hand out. And he made the same vows the way Emily did. If any woman who finds Edward, that woman will become his wife. The villagers wouldn't know what happened to Edward. Some think Edward abandoned them, but some don't think so because they know that Edward is a good man. So they honor Edward for the good, kind man that he is. A few years will pass and Victor and Victoria will be engaged to be married, and this will follow to my what if story. But for my version, Victoria will have a hard time finding Victor. She'll go deeper and deeper until she'll go by the place where Edward Vincent died, and she'll start to say her vows. It will go by scene with Victor and Victoria saying their vows. Victor awakens Emily, and Victoria awakens Edward Vincent, and she gets taken to land of the dead. And Victoria and Edward Vincent will have the same thing with Emily and Victor. Edward Vincent explains to Victoria that he died and he made a vow to himself, and Victoria is now his wife. Victoria will be confused by this. The two of them will meet Emily and Victor. At first, Victor and Victoria are happy to see each other, but Emily and Edward will be shocked to see each other. And they will tell Victor and Victoria that they know each other and they used to date each other. When Emily and Victor are doing their thing, Edward and Victoria are getting along with each other very well as a great couple. And they will talk about how they're both good people and how they like to help people. Edward will also make a few jokes to Victoria, and Victoria will laugh at these jokes. And the two of them are getting along very well. Victor will say to Edward Vincent that he read stories about him when he disappeared, and I'm going to put it in my version as well. Edward would find Emily, and the two of them will have a conversation with each other, and somehow they'll have an argument on how they can work out their differences. Edward will be confused whether if he wants to be with Victoria or Emily, and maybe we can have a song for Edward. I don't know what kind of song it could be, so it could just be a song that he could sing. And then by the end, Edward will finally understand, and he'll give the ring back to Victoria so that she can marry Victor. And Edward will find Emily, and he wants to fix their relationship, and he will tell Emily that he loves her very much. Emily will come to understanding as well, and she gives the ring back to Victor so that he can marry Victoria. Edward will apologize to Emily for everything, and Emily will forgive him. So we go to the wedding scene, and they have a double wedding, that kind of thing. And Victor and Victoria get married, and Emily and Edward get married. That's when Lord Barkis enters, and he meets Emily and Edward. At first, he's shocked to see Emily, but when he sees Edward, he's super shocked. Lord Barkis says, "Edward?" Edward responds by saying, "Barkis, what happened to you? What happened to me? The question is, what are you doing here?" Lord Barkis says he came here because he heard about a marriage. Emily tells Edward that Lord Barkis was the one that killed her, stole her jewels and money, and took her dreams away. Edward would look at Lord Barkis with disgust and tells him, "Damn you," to Lord Barkis. Lord Barkis grabs Victoria and grabs a sword and puts it to Victoria's throat. And when Victor tries to defend Victoria and tells him, "Take your hands off my wife," Lord Barkis is about to kill Victor. Edward grabs under the sword and stops the blade, saving Victor's life. He tells Lord Barkis, "You hurt him. Take your hands off his wife." So Edward Vincent fights Lord Barkis in a sword battle. Edward Vincent will put up much more of a fight since he died at the age of 25, so he'll gain the upper hand on Lord Barkis. Edward says to Lord Barkis he will kill him for what he did to Emily, but he's not a murderer like him. Edward will tell him to get out and to never come back. Lord Barkis shouts no, and he uses the sword to cut Edward's left skeleton arm off. He kicks Edward to the ground. He says he won't take orders from a corpse, and he's going to chop off Edward's head off. But Edward isn't afraid. As Lord Barkis is about to chop off Edward's head off, Emily saves Edward. She tells Lord Barkis to get out. And when Lord Barkis says the lines, "Always a bridesmaid, never the bride," he tells Edward, "You've been a good man, but you'll always still remain a dead corpse groom." Edward, mad at Lord Barkis, and says one final word to him, "Go to hell." Lord Barkis drinks the poison and dies, and is taken to land of dead. After all that is over, Emily puts his left skeleton arm back on him. The two are together. Victoria thanks Edward for saving Victor and her. Edward says he's happy to do so. Emily thanks Victor for freeing her, and Edward thanks Victoria for freeing him. Emily and Edward are now married, and they turn to butterflies, and it ends. So that's it for these 4 short what ifs to Corpse Bride. And there could be, and somehow, maybe there could be like a few other what ifs out there for Corpse Bride. Let's say, what if there was a prequel movie of Edward Vincent that starts with him, Emily, and Lord Barkis? And I know that I mentioned Edward's parents being dead, and they're not in the land of dead. Maybe they went to the real heaven, in my opinion. Or what if Tim Burton made a movie called Corpse Groom, and it starts with Victoria and Edward Vincent, and by the end, Victoria will want to be with Edward Vincent, and she'll drink the poison, and she dies, and they both turn to butterflies. And I heard that a lot of people say that Emily and Victoria are sisters, but I don't believe that because they don't even know each other. And hell, it's not like I'm going to say that Edward Vincent is Victor's dead older brother because they have different last names. But one of the corpse did say. Does he have a dead girlfriend? But anyways, let me know what you guys think of these 4 what ifs of Corpse Bride. And this is Skycher, and I'll see you guys next time.